Hello everyone and welcome to another casual review. Today I'm talking about Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered. So the last Assassin's Creed game that I played was Assassin's Creed 2 on the Xbox 360, so I'm right on track, right? Well, actually no. There's a ton of different Assassin's Creed games and also a movie, and this is the last Assassin's Creed game that has a numerical subtext. I believe they wanted to kind of stray away from that and quit doing this whole overarching story. Now, I actually did play a little bit of Assassin's Creed Origins, so I know that they still have some of the overarching plot in this series, but I will do my best to describe what is going on in the story as quickly and simply as I possibly can. Basically, there is a device called an animus, and this lets you access the memories of your past ancestors. So our main protagonist is named Desmond, and for reasons that even I don't completely understand, we are accessing Desmond's rich ancestral history because he is part of a creed called the Assassins. Now, the Assassins also have an opposing creed known as the Templars, but we can get into that a little bit later. So the first Assassin's Creed game took place in Old Jerusalem, and we were playing as his ancestor Altair. The second takes place in Venice, if I'm not mistaken, back in the day, and we played as Ezio. And in Assassin's Creed 3, we are playing during the colonial times of the American Revolution, and we are playing as his ancestor named Connor. Now, the game actually starts out with you playing as Haytham, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's his name, Haytham, and it's of him leaving England and coming to America. And you actually play a good chunk of the game as him. I want to say at least a fourth or a fifth of the game as him, and then it skips forward years and years in advance, and you start playing as his son, who is half white and half indigenous, and his actual name is a Native American name, and I can't really pronounce it, so I don't think anybody else could either, and they gave him his nickname Connor. I thought it was pretty interesting playing as a Native American. I really enjoy playing as the non-white male that so many video games want me to play as, so this was a welcome change of pace, and I actually really like the time setting and the place for this one as well. It felt like when I played in Jerusalem or Venice, I was just so disconnected because I didn't really know what was going on. Like, I granted, in Venice you come across Da Vinci, and everyone knows Da Vinci, and in this one you actually come across a ton of characters that if you are a good American unlike me, you will recognize a ton of names. I recognize a couple. You know, you come across John Hancock, and you come across Benjamin Franklin and George Washington. So you actually come across a lot of familiar figures here. It really made me realize how much I don't know about the American Revolution, but it did kind of pique my interest in it. It kind of felt like I was living through it. Granted, there is this whole main plot about the assassins trying to fight with the Templars too, so there's a little bit of fiction in this tale as well. But you do play through like the Boston Tea Party, and you ride your horse around telling everyone that the British are coming, and you are in the battle where he's like, don't fire until you see the white of their eyes. But there's a lot of fiction to it as well. I think it's a lot of it was hyped up and exasperated. Typical to most open world games, this game is as open world as it comes. If you ever played an Assassin's Creed game, you kind of know what to expect here. Lots of little landmarks that you can go explore, lots of side quests. There's a whole side quest where you have to help Benjamin Franklin collect his almanac pages floating around in the wind. I just skipped all of that this time around because I knew how long of a game this game can be if you just go around and smell the roses and don't focus on the main quest. But there is a ton of extra stuff you can do. You can help rebuild this manor, and you can decorate it how you want. You can trade resources. You can do a bunch of crafting. You can unlock different outfits. You can unlock different teammates. Tons of customization here, but I just went straight through the main game, and I felt like I wasn't struggling at all. There's no RPG mechanics in this. Well, I mean, you do get different gear with different stats, but there's no XP or leveling up, so don't feel like you're missing out on a ton if you're not doing doing any side quests. I just didn't feel very incentivized to do that stuff though, because there was no XP, and I'm actually pretty grateful that I had the option to just play through the main story if I wanted to. Lots of climbing, lots of fighting, you're watching a ton of cutscenes. I want to say about half of this game is just watching cutscenes. Like half of it I'm just watching a movie, which I'm fine with. I don't mind. I always felt like cutscenes were a reward for doing the tasks that the video game was asking of you, but I know a lot of people are annoyed, like I might as well just put the controller down. I'm not playing, I'm just watching this video game. So I can certainly understand why that would frustrate a lot of people. This game really wants you to play stealthy though, as you are playing an assassin, so there's a lot of like hiding in haystacks and waiting for people to come by and learning their walking routes and setting up traps and stuff like that. I just found it was so much quicker and not that much tougher than to just like run in head first and just attack people. This combat works similar to the Arkham games, if you ever played those, where you have like your basic attack, but then you have a counter right when an enemy is about to attack. You can counter their move and do a punishing attack back to them. There's also a disarm ability, so if an enemy isn't letting you attack them at all, you can like push them, knock them off their feet, and then you can attack them. So there's a little bit of play here. Sometimes they will aim their rifles at you and mean to shoot you, and you can pull an enemy and put them in front of you as a human shield. I felt like they took way too long to aim and shoot at you though. They gave you a lot of notice that what they're intending to do, so you have a lot of time to hurry and hide behind another person and use them as a shield. There's a ton of different other combat abilities and tons of different options here, and they probably would get more fleshed out if I had done all of the side quests, but I was just fine running in, just attacking them. Basically, I would play stealth for a little bit, but sooner or later I would get caught, and then it's just like, okay, I'm pulling out my axe and we're doing this. That's another reason that I really like playing as Connor, is he has this cool tomahawk that he uses and a bow and arrow. It's a lot more interesting than just using a plain old sword that I would use as in Assassin's Creed 1 and 2. I gotta say, people die really quickly from assassinations. I don't know if these guys are just experts at killing people stealthily, but it just seems like one stab in the back and you're just immediately down. You don't even make any sound like you got stabbed or anything like that. You don't say, help, I've been stabbed. You just immediately collapse. Like the assassins must just know the right spot to point their stealthy dagger at, because these guys die quick without making any noise. I felt like the game was really front-loaded with all these tutorials, however. It's like, hey, this is how you hunt for animals. All right, this is how you do naval battles. Okay, this is how you craft. Okay, now this is how you decorate with the manor and do trades. And I did feel a little overwhelmed at the beginning, so I typically ignored most of that stuff, although I might have enjoyed the game more if I had really fleshed out how to play it. But I could typically skip most of that stuff. I never really crafted anything, never bought a different weapon. Even by the end of the game, I was just fine with the weapons that I had started out with. I never felt compelled to upgrade my gear at all. It really feels like they're glossing over a lot of things that they had introduced in previous Assassin's Creed games, and they just kind of assume that you've already played those games, so you know how these systems work, and then they really dive into like teaching you the new stuff that was introduced in this game. Like they have you navigating these giant ships and having these ship battles with like cannons and stuff, and they take more time to explain that kind of stuff, so I feel like that was introduced in this game. They have this whole detective mode that's pretty common in games of that time, where like you just press down on the left stick and everything is black, but everything of interest is highlighted in a different color. So like the enemies will be highlighted in red. You can see where like footsteps are to track animals, and you know, that kind of typical detective mode. I felt like it was hindered a little bit in this game, because in previous games you could see where enemies were through walls. You could see that like red aura. In this one, they actually have to be within vision in order for their aura to show. So it kind of made it a little more realistic. Best mechanic ever though, they do let you pet the dogs. Don't worry, every time I pass a dog, I would make sure to pet it, and then I would go pet my dog in real life. So lots of dog petting in this game, which immediately bumps it up in my opinion. They have you loot bodies, Well, you don't have to, but every time you stab a guy, you can loot a body and collect, resources like poison darts or traps, and then you also get a little bit of money. And I didn't spend much money. Usually I just spent it to lower my notoriety in a town. Like if I caused a lot of crime, then the redcoats would be spotting you from a distance. So you could lower it by taking down wanted posters, or you could bribe like the news people, so then they would lower your notoriety as well. So then by that point, if it's at 0, you could just straight up walk right next to a redcoat and they wouldn't attack you. They would just kind of shove you to push you away. But every time you loot a body, it takes a good 5 seconds. And sometimes I would just get in these huge battles. It's just me surrounded by like 25, 30 redcoats, and I would beat them all. And then I just felt like I was spending like 5 minutes looting all of these bodies while the civilians just stood there like, what happened here? So I just wish that there was some sort of auto loot. I get that it's kind of like for a stealth mechanic, like, oh, I gotta hurry and loot this body before the guards come around the corner. But how I played it, I would just start looting, and if someone caught me, I would kill them, and then it's just one more body for me to loot. This game follows that trope that I always think it's funny in storytelling, where you just are killing tons of guys, hundreds of people, like it's nothing. Not even like they don't even do anything necessarily bad to you. It's just like they're guarding the main bad guy that you want to get to. So you just kill them without a second thought. You assassinate them, and then it just seems like in the main story, whenever it comes to like killing someone, you're like always on the high ground, like, oh, I could never kill him out of cold blood, and like suddenly you are so compassionate and you are so thoughtful and moral, but you just killed like 100 people to get to this person that you're debating if you should kill or not. I just think it's a funny trope that lots of things in the media do. It's not a bad looking game. It says it's remastered, and I bet it looks a lot better on a PS5 or an Xbox Series X, but on the Switch, it's kind of weird because it looks good, but at the same time, it's bad. And similar to most open world games, this game is flooded with glitches and texture pop-ins and weird ragdoll mechanics and twitchy body movements. I didn't encounter anything too game-breaking, although my game crashed once. Luckily, this game has plenty of checkpoints for you, so it was easy to hop right back into where I was. Not a whole lot was lost during that big bug crash, but yeah, just lots of things that kind of take you out of the experience, at least for the Switch port. I'm not sure if this is for the other systems, though. The loading times themselves aren't even that bad. Every time you would mess up an objective and it's kind of like a game over, it would boot up within 5 seconds. It really wasn't that bad. When you like hop back in the Animus, it takes maybe like 10 seconds. So no complaints about the loading time. Each mission that you go through in the main campaign, I'm not sure if this is also for side quests, but it also has little bonus objectives for you to do as you play through it, but they aren't required in order to push forward of the story. So it'll be like, say you're sneaking up on a bad guy, it'll have a bonus objective like, hey, don't get caught by the guards while you're doing this, or hey, only assassinate up to two guys during this mission. And it's okay if you miss out on it, but if you do, it says that you are fully in synced with the memory. Your synchronization with the ancestor's memory is 100%. And it, like I said, there's no XP or anything like that. So I'm only incentivized to do the 100% sync just as a completionist point of view, I suppose. Now, I did look this up later, and if you are 100% in sync with Connor's memory, then you do get Altair's outfit. But, that's not that big of a deal to me, so it's not worth stressing out about. Some of the missions were frustrating as it was. It's not like the combat was ever complicated, but they would have a couple of stealthy missions that would frustrate me, where if you get caught, then it's an immediate game over. Or sometimes I would just straight up jump off of a building and the height distance is way too far and I would die. I died from falling more than any other cause in this game. The subtitles were kind of funny because whenever you are playing as Desmond, not in the memory, but you're playing as the main character and you are out in the world, they would sometimes take you out to play as him to like collect energy sources and things like that, just I think to kind of mix up the gameplay. But the subtitles would always say it's Desmond, so even if it's like one of your partners or like the narrator narrator or something like that, my subtitles would always say it's Desmond saying all this stuff, but I could clearly hear that it was not Desmond. So if you are deaf and you're reading the subtitles, some of the times it's not Desmond saying that stuff, and you would be pretty confused if he was. I think they do a good job of mixing up the gameplay in this, however. Like, sometimes you're commanding troops to shoot at redcoats, sometimes you're firing cannons, sometimes you're sailing a ship, sometimes you're chasing down guys. So they do a good job of mixing things up. I can imagine if I was playing the whole open world stuff, all the side quests, that could get pretty repetitive, because the side quests themselves are like, go collect almanac pages, go tear down 3 things, go beat up guys for information about stuff. Pretty generic stuff here, and the stories on these side quests are pretty much non-existent, so it's not like Witcher 3 in that regard. Overall, I think it's a good enough game. I had a good enough time just playing through the main campaign. I imagine my opinion of this game would actually lower if I tried to do all of the open world stuff. I usually get pretty frustrated about that. I don't know. I thought it was good. I had a fine enough time, and I was pretty invested in the story between. I was invested in the relationship between Hatham and Connor, and I liked seeing the old colonial times of Boston and New York. I thought it was fun, a good enough time. I think I will give this game a 3 out of 5, which is very apropos. You know, let's give Assassin's Creed 3 a 3 out of 5. Well, guys, that's it for me. Let me know if you have any questions or comments about Assassin's Creed, anything in the series. Have you seen the movie? I think maybe I should watch it now that I played through the game. That's it for me, though. I'll talk to you later. Bye!